Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our North of Falcon #3 meeting for Grace Harbor. Thank you for joining us. I'll just give us about 1 minute here to make sure everybody is present, and then we'll get started. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Marlene Wagner. I am the South Coast Policy Lead, and just want to welcome you everybody tonight to our Grace Harbor Fisheries discussion. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to start with our basic ground rules, and I appreciate that it's a repetition for many, but we'll just briefly go through them again, and then we'll get into the fun stuff. So you can turn your camera on and mute or unmute yourself through the control panel at the bottom of your screen. We're going to keep folks muted during the beginning of our program, and then we'll unmute everybody when we open it up for questions and feedback. Callers can unmute themselves by pressing *6 on their phone. Please raise your hand to ask a question, which you can access through the control panel at the bottom of the screen. You can also raise your hand by hovering over your face or name at the list on the list of participants. Callers can raise their hand by dialing *9. Please do be respectful of others. And this would include things like muting your phone or line when you're not speaking. Especially be tough on issues and questions, but not on people or organizations. Please don't participate in any personal attacks, insults, or threats. Please listen to everybody and speak and act professionally. So that would include no offensive, disrespectful, or derogatory language, including profanity. Allow for a balance of speaking time. And do remember that this meeting is being recorded. If you have any technical issues during the call, use the chat button and we're going to help you through those. But we're going to take any questions or comments that you have live. So we're just here to discuss further fisheries proposals for Grace Harbor. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to the technical lead for Grace Harbor, Mr. Mike Sharp. So thank you, and take it away, Mike.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to run through a couple of options and ideas that we put together. Some of these are fairly familiar. What we did over the weekend is provided you an opportunity to look at some of the options that we were looking at and provide feedback. And so from that feedback, we modeled some options here that I think meet our management objectives as we move forward. I will say that at this point in time, we were hoping to have exchanged ideas from the Quinault tribe. We have not at this point in time. It is a little late in the season than what we're used to exchange ideas with them, but it is what we have to deal with this year, and we're going to move forward as we need to in addressing what our fisheries could look like. So with that being said, what you see in front of you, it is a comparison of three options that very similar to what you saw from, I think it was last week's meeting or the week before last. So what we did was took the ideas that we heard from you, updated the model with updated FRAM model runs for both Coho and Chinook, which provides us updated numbers of fish coming across the bar. And then there were a couple of minor model errors that were discovered. And so those were updated and data were reviewed and went back in and corrected all of the issues. And this is what we have. So idea 2 was very, very similar to what we showed you last week or at our last meeting. But the concept here is in the north, sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but we heard the importance of September in the Bay and Lower River fisheries. And we also heard that a 2-week gap was not very liked by many. So we tried to put together something that would take care of some of those issues that we heard from you folks. And so we put in the North Bay fishery. We tried to extend that by a week. So instead of closing in September 16th, we extended it through the 23rd. And then in the East Bay, we put together the fishery that allows an opening from August 1st through November 30th. And then ideas 3B and 3C, a couple of versions of closing a couple of days per week to help manage the impacts that do occur. We also tried to bridge that 2-week gap in the Lower River by extending the jack fishery from August 1st to September 23rd. And in all of these 3 options, those time periods are the same. And the adult harvest portion of the season would open up August 1st and run through in option 2 or idea 2, it would run through November 30th. And then the month of December, it would revert to a marked selective fisheries for coho and then chum. And the rest of this proposals were the same as what we had last week in idea 2, where we have the upper river and the tributaries open October 1st through December 31st as marked selective fisheries. Tulips River would stay the same as last year. And then the non-treated commercial fishery would have 3 days in week 44, which is October 24th in area 2A and 2D, and then 2 days in week 45, which is the last day of October. And then in 2C, we're proposing 4 days in week 43 and 2 days in week 44. And if you look through the management objectives at the bottom of the screen, you will see that Chehalis coho impacts, all 3 of these models achieve keeping the impacts under 5% and under 5% for hump tulips coho. Again, the Chehalis fall Chinook escapement they're all red. That is, none of these models allow is not a good word, but provide for the escapement of Chehalis fall Chinook to achieve the goal. Like I said last time, these 3 models keep us far below our 50% share of the harvestable surplus. So not meeting the goal is not the result of these 3 models. So certainly we'll look for some help with the co-managers. And all 3 would achieve the fall Chinook Grays Harbor escapement goal for both coho and the fall Chinook. So idea 3B was looking at how we could get to the management objectives with 2 days a week closure. And in this particular model, we were closing Sunday and Monday. And as you'll see, impacts there provide for, didn't provide for, but it's 4.53. And if we closed 3 days per week, Monday through Wednesday, which leaves both weekend days open, you'll see the impact goes up to 4.79. These two are just more or less giving you guys an idea of what the differences are between having a weekend day closed versus just trying to close on weekends. But both of those ideas, 2 or 3B and 3C in the lower river, would keep wild coho harvest through December. So only idea 2 would be marked selective for coho in December. Kind of rambled through that, but this is kind of where we've narrowed things down from what we've heard. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mark, and we'll go into the question portion of this presentation.
Thanks, everybody. Trying not to have the sunshine obscure my camera and trying to soak up as much as I can at the same time. Appreciate everybody being with us tonight. For those folks on the phone, *9 raises your hand. If you're on the computer, there's a raised hand feature at the bottom, or sometimes in some versions, it's under the emotions icon. So if folks have any questions or comments about any of the info Mike's presented, we'd love to hear it. We will start with David. Welcome, David.
Hello, you got me?
We do.
Okay, I figured I'd break the ice. It's always hard to do. Anyway, I have a question. On B and C, I noticed the bay goes the same as the tidewater does on the days of the week. Why that for the bay? I mean, I remember looking at the models and the changes weren't that dramatic. I mean, what's the purpose of that?
That was one of the things that we heard to extend seasons. Can we do a closure during the week by a day or two? And yep, this is what happens. We do get some savings. Weekend days save more than weekdays. Demonstration purposes, Dave.
Oh, no, I think you got me wrong. I'm not talking Tidewater 101, 107. I'm talking East Bay. The East Bay goes October 1, the 2 days or 3 days off, just like 101 to 107 does. And I'm asking why the Bay's doing that instead of just staying like it is option 2.
I'm presenting options, Dave.
I mean, idea 2.
Yep, idea 2 is a nice option. I'm trying to keep both the Bay and the lower river in a similar schedule so that there's less confusion and conflict.
Oh, okay. I think Francis ought to be flagging around somewhere now. Okay, I thank you.
Looks like I was muted there. Sorry about that. Looks like Bill is next. Go ahead, Bill.
Can you hear me?
We can, Bill. Welcome.
I want to talk Wainuchi. I don't see it in the on the what I'm looking at here, but I did take a look at some of the other plans. You got to understand, I've made many presentations to the commission relative to Wainuchi mitigation. That's been going on since 1991. A bunch of us have made the presentations, and there's 4 or 5 times in the last 5 or 6 years that the commission members looked at the director and said, take care of this problem. It's an ongoing problem, 30 years, no mitigation for coho or steelhead on the Wainuchi. You're sitting on $2.4 million. You've been sitting on it and you're not doing anything. And it's going to bite us this year because we don't get any fishery other than a chum fishery on the Wainuchi. And that is ludicrous. And it's WDFW fault. You have not done your job. You guys ought to all be fired relative to Wainuchi mitigation. 30 years is way too long. You need to get off your duff. You need to get that taken care of. And Mark, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to get up to speed on the Wainuchi mitigation. Those fish we should have been fishing on those fish for 30 years. And you're going to shut it down this year because there's no hatchery coho because you haven't done your job. WDFW has not done their job. Thank you.
I think I recognize this one. Andy, I believe this is you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
So Mike or Mark, whoever's going to answer this. So with the current policy and your only 4-day fishing week, and the tribe says we're going to fish 2 days on one of those weeks, where do you plan on shifting the commercial effort? If they do so.
I can't comment on that until I know what they're doing. But it's something we're going to have to deal with when we get something from them.
Okay.
So Mike, I'm going to ask you a question, and I apologize if you said this earlier and I missed it. Have you been in contact with technical staff, and is there plans for a meeting here in the next day or two?
I have sent emails and have not had any response this week or late last week, so I have not heard anything at this point in time. And I know that there are big discussions at the big tables.
Yep. Just checking on that, Mike. Thank you for that. So I guess what I would, knowing your question, Andy, and kind of knowing some of the difficult situations we're in, I think we're going to do our best to make sure that once we have that conversation that we're communicating with folks about what that is and what folks' preferences are and how we're going to handle that. So just know that we're committed to that, as we have done in the past when we've gotten into situations like this. So go ahead, Mike.
Just want to let you know that I have sent this particular file to my counterparts at the Quinault, so they know which weeks that we are proposing and how many days in those weeks.
Great. That's helpful, Mike. Thank you. Garrett is up next. Go ahead, Garrett.
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. I would like to propose my opposition for idea 3B. It restricts the fishery in the lower bay and the lower river to a Tuesday through Saturday schedule. For a lot of us working folks, you know, Saturday and Sundays are only days to fish, and would really like to keep both those days in our fisheries, you know, when possible. So I would support idea 2 or 3C. So that's all I got for now. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the feedback, Garrett. Other folks on the line, any comments or questions related to proposals? Go ahead, Dave.
My touch screen wasn't touching well. I'd like to point out one thing about the proposals here, but just for myself personally, I've been part of this process for a long time, and I think I would go with C, 3C. It's about everybody having an opportunity, and people at work, like the previous gentleman says, it's the weekends, everything to them. Okay, so as is for everybody else in September. So, and I'd like to point out something else about the way Mike's done this is the nation always goes in Sunday at noon. So Sunday would be a wash for the wreck on both sides, some little bit dislocation, but not much. And as far as tide, not the bay, but tide water is concerned, when the nation's fishing, it's pretty rough to fish around them. And so they always fish Sunday to, the 3-day week, three-day week, the way they do it. And so that works into what we would be experiencing anyway. When it's a low run year, believe me, there ain't a whole lot getting by the nets in when they're in. It's just the way it works. So that it's gonna, depending on how the canals and everybody do everything, the days we're giving up here in restriction things to keep the weekend and part of September, which is very valuable to most folks. The penalty isn't as big as it looks for the tidewater fishermen going up, because it's just the way everything always works out. So just wanted to say that.
Appreciate the feedback, Dave. Did you put your hand back up, Dave?
I didn't do anything. I just sitting here. Oh, I see my hands up. Sorry about that. And down.
No worries. I
No.
just wanted to give you a chance if you had something else to say.
I think Mike would rather see me shut up, probably everybody else too. But, all I got to say, one thing about this whole process is there is no way in the proverbial thing, all these meetings, everybody always about is a win-win situation. There ain't no such thing as a win-win in this whole damn thing. It is just how big you lose. And that's all what I'm seeing here is the only reason I can not even screech my lungs out is I know we're in the penalty box for 3-5 and we got a pad on our side. And if we don't make escapement, the nation's gonna own it. And that's the one thing here in this whole thing that normally, if you're conservation driven or anything like that, you'd really flinch, is the knowledge that we have enough on our side to cover any screw up on our side. That goes for commercial land. Okay. I'll shut up again. Mute.
Thanks, Dave. Any other comments or questions about Grays Harbor Fisheries this year? Go ahead, Bill. Should be able to unmute yourself, Bill.
I waited. I wanted to see if anybody else was going to speak. I'd like to go back to the Wainuchi. I wrote down that, do we have a number of how many wild fish that we need in the Wainuchi? Is there a number?
So we managed to a basin-wide goal, not to an individual stream goal. So with that being said, each individual tributary contributes to the basin-wide goal. So for management purposes, we are not trying to achieve each individual stream goal. It is a Chehalis River goal and a Grace Harbor goal. Hope that helps.
Oh, okay, well, because I was gonna say, I wrote down the last 5 years and at the trap, and we know what happens to those fish at the trap. 656, 718, 709, 643, 830, 839. Last year we got the one fish because there's only wild coho in the Wainuchi, and that's what I said earlier. And the bay gets the fish on Wainuchi fish before we do. The tribe gets the fish. The NTers get the fish, and the lower part from 101 Bridge to South Monty get the fish on Wainuchi fish. Then once the Wainuchi opens, you cut us off completely. And I'm having a hard time with that. I don't know if there's any way that we'd ever know how many wild fish that were destined for the Wainuchi get picked off before they get there, but there's got to be some. The nets or bay fishermen. If I owned property on the Wainuchi, I wouldn't be real happy that I couldn't go out and keep a coho. I'm telling you that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Well, maybe I'll give folks just a quick update. There were some moves made this evening by the Pacific Fishery Management Council on an ocean package. The salmon technical team will be modeling those changes overnight, and we'll have our first look at some new modeling in the morning. I think the non-treaty package was lowered on the coho quota. I don't have all the details. We can have those details out in the morning to everybody once we have all that modeling done. I think what I was told is that there are still multiple treaty troll options as co-managers work to try to resolve those differences and get to a single treaty troll package. So hopefully we'll start dialing this stuff in the next couple days. We've got a number of issues we're working out both on the coast and on the inside fisheries. But you know, we're all putting in the time and making sure we're trying to get everything done here before the end of the week. So just taking kind of one last pause here to see if anybody else had any comments for tonight before we wrapped it up. Like I said, we'll share information as we have it, as we have in the past, as the fisheries packages come more into focus here in the next couple of days. We'll make sure we're communicating. If there's a significant need, if something gets outside of what we expect and there's a need to pull everybody together, we'll make sure we let people know and set up a meeting as soon as we can. I think we're feeling like we have our sideboards on a fisheries package for us this year, given some of the constraints we were facing pre-season. So really want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. A big thanks to Marlene and especially Mike for and Kim for getting all these models together and talking through stuff. So again, really appreciate everybody's time tonight and joining us. Appreciate your comments and feedback, and thanks, and we'll be in touch soon. Take care, everybody.